Throughout history, we have women to thank for so many contributions, and in the IT field, the influencing women are abundant. What I plan to do in this presentation is a bit of education, shining a light on some of the incredible women who deserve the recognition but didn't receive it, the recent trends for the women in technology field, and what the future may hold in this field. Let's go all the way back to the first computer. Actually, the first computer was a woman. Men created the hardware, but considered that the programming was clerical work, and they left it to the women. Many of the first applications supported astronomy and our military. Let's take a look. Ada Lovelace from London is the world's first computer programmer, as she drafted plans for how a machine called the analytical engine could perform computations. These detailed applications for the analytical engine relate to how computers are used today. So this is an incredible story. In the late 1800s, men at the Harvard College Observatory were busy gazing at the sky through telescopes, gathering data about the stars and the planets. They marked the coordinates of the planets at regular intervals to better understand the universe. But they felt that crunching these astronomical numbers, no pun intended, in order to calculate relationships and effectively measure the universe was beneath them. So the lead astrologer, Edward Pickering, asked his housemaid, Wilhelmina Fleming, to work as a computer at Harvard. She agreed, going on to lead a team of more than 80 women who did the computational work that's responsible for how far we understand the universe today. These computers from Harvard, the women, not the hardware, grew into a unit of female mathematicians at what would become NASA and its Jet Propulsion Laboratory, working during World War II on behalf of the U.S. military. The calculations they did plotting ballistic trajectories were time-consuming and exceedingly complicated. So two men decided to build a machine that could carry out these calculations. It was called the ENIAC, and it's now considered the first electrical computer. The ENIAC builders recruited 6 women who became the world's first coders, manipulating the ENIAC to calculate missile trajectories. The work they did for the Army in the 1940s resulted in the first software program, the development of computer memory and storage, and the beginnings of the programming languages. Grace Hopper is my hero. In the late 1940s, she worked at the Harvard Computation Lab as part of the Navy Reserve, programming the Mark I computer that brought speed and accuracy to military initiatives in World War II. Her history and accomplishments are incredible, but I think I like her most because of her tenacity. Working as a senior mathematician, she helped develop the UNIVAC I computer, the first business-oriented machine. Believe it or not, she created the first compiler. For those that don't know what a compiler is, it's an intermediate program that translates programmers' code into the language of the computer, called machine language. And her best accomplishment, in my opinion, is she was one of the architects of a new compiled computer program language called COBOL, which stands for Common Business-Oriented Language. It was her idea that computer code could be written and read like language. I developed in COBOL for more than 10 years at the beginning of my career, and that code is still running today, almost 30 years later. Margaret Hamilton is an American computer scientist and systems engineer from Indiana who led the software engineering division of the MIT Instruction Laboratory. Her work resulted in the successful Apollo 11 mission to the moon. The guidance software she developed was later adapted for use in Skylab space shuttle and the first digital fly-by-wire systems in aircraft. Have you seen the movie or read the book Hidden Figures? Well, that story is based on this woman, Katherine Johnson. Her contributions, like many other women in the mid-1900s, helped advance our space program. Her critical calculations ensured safe space travel from 1950s onward. Her contributions resonate in Project Apollo's lunar lander, the space shuttle, and the Earth Resources satellite. Without getting into too many technical details, let's just say that this is the woman who managed the nodes of the ARPANET, which is the precursor to what we call the Internet today. Her outfit was the organizational white and yellow pages of every domain on the Internet. She helped introduce domain naming protocol, so we can thank her for all of the .coms, .nets, and .govs out there today. If you needed to retrieve an address or register a new one, you asked her. She kind of looks like a librarian, doesn't she? And if you love retro video games, you can thank Carol Shaw, as she is considered the first female video game designer and programmer. The games she developed from 79 till 82, many of them for Atari, paved the way for the incredible emergence of the video gaming industry. Karen Jones laid the groundwork for the sort of information retrieval we use today. So when you Google something, you can thank her for the relevant results you see in your browser. The next two women were integral to the Apple industry. Adele Goldberg is a computer scientist from Ohio who developed some of the world's most notable programming languages that have influenced the modern GUI. She was the lone woman among a group of men who together built the Smalltalk 80 programming language and developed the infrastructure and design for overlapping windows on display screens in the 1970s. She was also involved in creating influential design templates used in software design, some of which guided the development of the Apple Macintosh desktop environment. Without this woman, the Apple desktop environment may not look the way it does today. You might remember the PBS TV show Triumph of the Nerds, where she revealed that she was forced by her superiors to show Smalltalk and the GUI to Steve Jobs and his team, even though she thought it wasn't a good idea to show Jobs their intellectual property. In the same show, Jobs said that he was intrigued by Smalltalk and that he knew the GUI technology Goldberg had helped develop represented the future of computing and of Apple. And speaking of Apple, Susan Kare built on the GUI inspired by Adele Goldberg's team and is responsible for what remains some of Apple's signature graphics to this day. She developed the idea that the graphics should be easily readable symbols correlating to real-world objects. So that's how we got the Apple clock, the pointer finger, and the trash can, among many more. Using Apple computers then and now is so intuitive because of her. Here we have just a few more women who made advancements in technology that are worth mentioning. Megan Smith closely advised President Obama on his decision to maintain net neutrality and to endorse a free and open internet. Mary Ellen Wilkes paved the way for women to work from home. And if you drive a Prius, you can thank Annie Easley for that battery. And since I think we all have smartphones, we can thank Donna Dubinsky, who introduced the PDA, which was the precursor to the BlackBerry, which evolved into the smartphone. Each of these women's histories are wrought with exceptional trials and victories. The overview I've given you for each of them barely scratches the surface of their contributions, but nevertheless, women were solely responsible for the invention of programming and many of the languages and frameworks we use today. But then it all changed. In the mid-1960s, men began to recognize that programming was the most important job in the new information economy, and the ensuing shift in the business leaves us with a shortage of women in the IT field today. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that 73% of all job growth until 2024 will be in computer occupations. But this graph shows the fraction of U.S. bachelor degrees awarded to women in STEM fields. The light blue line, which begins in the late 80s, shows a steady decline in the computer science field. What's not shown in the graph is the fact that in 1970, women only accounted for 3.6% of bachelor degrees in computer science, but that number rose to 37% in 1984, and since then has declined again to 18% like it was in the 70s. I received my degree in 1983, being among this surge of graduates in IT. So what's the deal? In 2017, less than 30% of women with a STEM bachelor's degree entered STEM occupations, and of those, only 12% worked in IT occupations. Even though there are women with tech degrees, women aren't using them. As seen in this chart, less than 25% of the technical roles in these leading companies are women. So I have to ask myself, why are women not filling these roles? We know for sure it's not because of aptitude or ability based on gender bias. After all, women invented programming. What can we do about the gender inequality? Universities, corporations, and you can help. Educators and parents must work together to help girls maintain their confidence and curiosity in STEM subjects. Professional women already in the field can become mentors, while men can help create a more inclusive workplace. If you're a woman pursuing a career that requires a degree, you're living in a paradox. Nowadays, more women than men are attending college, but women aren't choosing the STEM fields. Universities are doing a lot to attract women to the STEM fields, but I feel their most important work are educating women without bias, retaining tenured female professors, and building a healthy network of successful female graduates in the IT field. Companies are offering benefits to women in order to attract and retain female employees. Paid maternity leave is one of the leading differentiators among companies. We saw the left-hand chart earlier in this report, but looked at it from a technical field perspective. Let's take a closer look. It looks like these companies, while they may not have a lot of women in technical roles, shown in the light blue line, they have a significantly higher number of women in technical leadership roles, shown in the dark blue line. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Let's look at the snippet on the right-hand side of the slide, which shows Salesforce is doing well with women in the workplace. This week we had Salesforce come to our company. The meeting included 5 guys from Salesforce, 3 guys from GE, and me. After introductions, we were ready to begin, and I said, "Wait, I have a question. Where are all of the women?" They were surprised at my question, and I was even more surprised by their answer. They said their VP and executive chain were women. Seems they're serious about promoting women to leadership positions. The decision to choose a STEM degree is contemplated long before college. Girls become interested in STEM at middle school age, but unless encouraged at that point, they lose interest. The most important thing you can do as a family member, friend, or colleague is to be a mentor. Just as Sister Krista encouraged me to choose a STEM degree while I was in my 4th year of math in high school, you can also be a change agent in a young girl's life. On this slide are 4 organizations, 3 of which I have personal involvement, which encourage girls to choose STEM fields. Here are the list of references that I've used in my report. Okay, so thank you for listening to my presentation on women in computing. I hope you learned a lot. I am leaving some questions for the class, and I look forward to hearing your responses and your feedback on my presentation. Have a great day.